Start of hour number 2 here on Sports Talk. Welcome back, everybody. Steve Kaplowitz with you from our 600 ESPN El Paso Lube and Go studios. And right now, we join on Zoom with a man who just took a big sip of some kind of liquid. Hopefully, it wasn't alcoholic related. Actually, I hope it is alcohol. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, if Nate Ryan's coming on the show with us and he's got some kind of special juice that he's drinking before the segment, load up, pal. That works for me. He's with us here live via Zoom as we begin our second hour of the show. Nate, how are you?
Well, Steve, I'll tell you what, you and I were just having a conversation. I'm going home for Christmas tomorrow. So on the alcoholic beverages, you can check back in about 24 hours. But I was just some strong coffee there to hold me over for the time being.
What's your drink of choice? When you have a chance to actually get off the set and enjoy a little downtime, what are you a beer guy? What do you like?
Honestly, it depends on the setting. Me, I'm from the Midwest, you can't go wrong with a nice Miller Lite or an Old Style or something like that. So that's the kind of stuff I was raised on there. But I'm a fan of the whiskey. I'll get into the whiskeys there from time to time. Just a nice sort of on the rocks type deal. Especially now in the summer months for sure. But and then also too, the little in the beer action, a little Dos Equis with lime. I don't mind myself either. Now I've gotten much more accustomed to it now living here on the border.
All right, so you're not a craft beer guy yet. It hasn't really happened yet, has it?
I will drink craft beers. I mean, I'm 25 years old, so
okay.
I'm 3 years removed from the fraternity house. So it's you put it in front of me, I'll probably. I won't say no, I guess, but there are certain kinds of craft beers that I will drink more than others. The stouts are a little tougher for me now. I gotta acquire the taste of that. But there are some. There's one actually. It's called La Fine du Monde is what it's called. It's a Belgian kind of style beer that they have. It's a beer brewery, I think, based out of Quebec.
Right.
That's probably my favorite beer that I've ever kind of come across there. That's a good one.
No, if you ever want to bring Old Styles into El Paso, that'll be a big hit with people. That's kind of like the Midwest version of Lone Star, right?
Oh yeah, that's what I used to be. The advertisements on WGN radio up there. It was think local, drink local on the Old Styles. They're not. If you got about $5, it could give you a fun Saturday night, But that's what they sell in the bleachers out there in Wrigley Field, Steve.
I got to tell you, I got to give a plug to my buddies out at Dead Beach. They're terrific people. And yesterday, I started with a pumpkin cream ale. That was my first beer. And then afterwards, I wanted a dessert beer, so I went into an Oreo milk stout. That was absolutely delicious. 9.5 ABV on that last one, and I was good to go. So it's perfect. I like the dark beer. I like the thick stuff. I want a high ABV. I want to drink one of it, and I'll be feeling fine the rest of the night. So those two did the job, and I love the guys at Dead Beach. They do such good work, and they were great yesterday, and that was my Sunday for you. I celebrated a little football and had a chance to knock a few cold ones back.
Well, the Oreo milk stout. Those guys sound like mad scientists over there putting that together.
Well, I've got Oreo. I just had that last night. Then there's coffee milk stout that I'm going to be trying, and then there's a peppermint milk stout that I think I'm going to be saving for Thursday or Friday. So I love the stouts, and they've got all the different varieties, and it's that time of year, man. It's time to enjoy some of the new limited releases from those guys at Dead Beach, and I'm excited about that. But you know what? We can talk beer the whole segment, Nate. I know you would love to we could just talk about beverages and get into tequilas and everything else, but you're on because you got a big story for the 10 o'clock tonight on KVIA, don't you?
That's correct. Yeah, no, we've got a feature story that I'm rolling out tonight here in a 10 p.m. newscast. Actually, sort of like it's an El Paso life sort of success story, and it's one that will resonate really well with you and me being in the sports media field. But it's looking back, a trip down memory lane with El Paso native Bill McAtee, who is a legendary sports broadcaster. He's been with CBS for a very long time, started out at NBC. Before that, he was a sports reporter at WFAA in Dallas. But he's a El Paso native. He wasn't born here, but he moved here, when his dad was, stationed at Fort Bliss when he was a kid, and then went to Burgess High School, graduated from Burgess. And his career has just been, marked by historic and, exciting sporting events. The top of the line events. He's called the Olympics, tennis Grand Slams, the Masters. He did 16 seasons of NFL play-by-play. He's a voice that you recognize when you hear him. This past year was just his 30th Masters as part of the broadcast team for CBS. Just wrapped up his 30th, and that was his final Masters. But Bill McAtee is synonymous with the best and the biggest sporting events out there. And really, he and I just sort of sat down, talked about coming from El Paso and how it's influenced him in his career and where his career has taken him along the way.
I love it. I think that's great. And I think it's safe to say that when you look at, some of the great national broadcasters, the first that comes to mind is probably Sam Donaldson, because he was born here and grew up here as well. And then you think about Bill McAtee and what he was able to accomplish from, his days in El Paso all the way through. And no doubt from a sports standpoint, Bill McAtee, without a doubt, the biggest name to come out of El Paso. It's funny because I look at Fred Albers and I think about the 35, almost 40 years he spent in El Paso as a sportscaster, and now PGA Tour radio, where he is synonymous on all the national radio feeds at every big golf event. But he came here after college, and he's from St. Louis. And yet McAtee, like you said, the roots are deep in El Paso from when he moved here as a young kid, going through Burgess and to school, and how he's turned into such a great sportscaster over the years. It truly is one of the great success stories for El Paso.
Yeah. And the thing is with him too, you talk about it because there's people who come, after college. He's a guy who spent his upbringing here, his outlook on life and, his outlook on the world around him was shaped by, walking the streets of El Paso and coming through Burgess High School. And the memories for him, you can just tell, are so very clear and very vivid. And he was very touched that, we wanted to do a story on him. And it was funny for me because he was telling me he was thankful that I was doing a story on him. But for me, a guy who grew up listening to Bill McAtee, and he was sort of the soundtrack, one of the voices that led their hands to the soundtrack of sports broadcasting and sports journalism. For me, I was thanking him. It was really, really cool for me, and I didn't know how deep his roots were here in the borderland, but you could just tell from when he was talking about his memories growing up in El Paso, they're still so very clear with him. I mean, we did an interview that was probably expected to last about 20 minutes, but we went for about an hour to just sort of talking.
How old was Bill when he moved to El Paso, Nate?
So Bill went to high school. I think he was like around 10 years old, but I think a little bit before then. But his memories, his stepmother still lives here on Rim Road.
Oh, wow.
And he still comes back to the region, quite frequently. And it was actually funny. One of his friends who still, I believe, lives here was the one who put me in contact with him. But just you hear so many stories about people who, they come to El Paso, and El Paso is such a unique and distinct place that they have specific memories about it, and you can tell it really, draws at your personality and your heartstrings when you come from here. But for him, it definitely rings true because you could just hear, he's sort of describing the memories to me, with words. He's talking about, the smell of mesquite, walking back from football practice at Burgess High School, or, going and sitting in on classes at UTEP just wanting to learn, just communications classes, even when he was in high school. He was orally telling me these stories, Steve, but you could tell his mind was back in another time. It was in another place because it was so vivid and so clear in front of him. And it was cool for me to watch somebody, have those memories play out in front of them, as strong as they were for Bill.
Oh, that's fantastic. By the way, he was 10 years old when Texas Western won the national championship. I don't know if he had any memories that he shared with you during the interview of that, but that was 1966. So he was 10, and had he just moved to El Paso, imagine that. You come here and you get a chance to experience that triumph with the Miners winning it all.
Yeah, a question I had for him was what the sports scene was like in El Paso when he was young and sort of up and coming. And he had one, and the sports scene, it wasn't really sports, it was Miner basketball. That was the scene. That was everything, because he mentioned, they had just won the 1966 national championship, and everybody, every single night, people wanted to go. That was the biggest ticket in town. That was that was the sports scene, but it was really the scene as a whole for just the city of El Paso, was minor basketball back then.
Absolutely. So, Nate, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be on the 10 o'clock show tonight. But how long is the piece with Bill McAtee?
So the piece is about, in total, it's about 3.5 minutes. So 3:30 in total. And it's mostly just sort of letting the tape run and hearing his stories, because again, too, he's fresh out of calling his 30th Masters up at the 14th Tower at Augusta National. But, going back through some of the old archive footage too of his days at WFAA and when he was at NBC and kind of coming up through CBS and all the sports he did. You could tell, I mean, there's video of him from, when he was in his 20s and 30s, but he still looks, the exact same too, which is cool. It's cool for me, at least as a sports journalist, especially. It's cool looking back at those archive footages and seeing that all play out.
Nate, I'm looking forward to that tonight at 10. How long since Bill's been back in El Paso?
So Bill, I think, comes back here pretty frequently. I don't know when exactly the last time he was here was, but like I said, he mentioned his stepmother still lives here. He still does a lot of business with people in the area. A lot of his friends still live here. He talks about every time he comes back here, he always makes sure to stop over at the Charcoaler and get himself a double burger, I think is what his order was. But I mean, it just goes to show just a guy who's been so many places. I mean, this is a guy who's, been to Europe and, Roland Garros and calling the French Open, been to NFL stadiums across the country and, Augusta National. But, El Paso for him is probably, right up there above all those, because it's helped shape him.
No, we're looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun tonight for the 10 o'clock show. And again, don't miss it, folks. Check it out. KVIA with Nate Ryan talking about Bill McAtee. Hey, enjoy the trip back home. And hopefully you get some nice weather or cooperates. And then we'll see you here in 2021.
Yeah, well, Steve, we just talk about, you go home and you have those special feelings. For me, I mean, it's probably going to be freezing cold. You might get some freezing rain back in Chicago, but that's how I know it. So I'd actually probably prefer it back there. But I appreciate it, Steve.
What's the best pizza for you? Chicago-based pizza. If you had to pick one go-to, which one is it going to be for you?
I've got a full power rankings list, a full manifesto out there. That's another thing we could spend a lot of time talking about.
Oh, do you really?
Ironic. Oh, it's detailed. It is. I mean, you want to talk about this? It's like the BCS rankings of Chicago style pizza. It depends on the mood. I mean, I'm talking stuffed, thin crust. If it's coming after, a long night, if it's, something that you're having during the day. But number one, the easy number one, it's called Chicago's Pizza. There's 2 locations in Chicago. That's the name of it, Chicago's Pizza. 24-hour delivery, Steve. Mm-hmm. So, it could be 4 a.m. in Chicago. It could be 4 p.m. These guys will hook it up for you. But it's got to be this. They have a deep dish style and they have a stuffed style. Okay. The deep dish style, it's the stuffed pizza is actually what you think deep dish is, with the heavy sauce on top. Their deep dish, it's weird. It's like kind of the cheese is on top and there's like a weird bread layer in the middle. But you have to order the stuff from there. But you can't really go wrong with a lot of the places around there.
Best butter crust in Chicago for pizza, because butter crust is a kind of a Chicago thing. Right. I like the Home Run Inn frozen pizzas here because they do a great job. And I've been to Home Run Inn in Chicago, oh God, years ago, and did that whole experience. What about you? What's your go-to?
Home Run Inn is also right up there as well too. The butter crust, there's a place, Pequod's is pretty good as well too. Pequod's Pizzas is a place in Lincoln Park that's solid. A thin crust, there's a hole in the wall joint kind of by my house. It's actually kind of New York style pizza in Chicago, which is your neck of the woods over there. I know, Steve, but it's Cafe Luigi is what it's called. That's really good. There's a place, Art of Pizza on Ashland. That's also tremendous. And their menu is diverse. I mean, you can't really go wrong with anything that they have there.
See, I thought you were going to just go Lou Malnati's like everybody else and just swear by Lou's, because that seems to be the easy answer when you ask any Chicagoan about pizza.
Listen, Steve, if somebody's telling you Lou Malnati's is their favorite type of pizza, which is cool, Lou Malnati's does have good za, but Lou Malnati's as well as Gino's East and Giordano's, they're obviously, those are the big 3. I mean, that's, what the answers you're going to get from everybody, but they've gotten like really, really big to the point where now they've like spread out into all branches of the suburbs and whatnot. And you've got these branches all over, and it's kind of been franchised a little bit too much, where I think you lose that sort of authenticity, in my opinion, I guess. So, if somebody's telling you that Lou Malnati's, it's their best, I'm guessing that they're probably, from like Libertyville or something like that, or like Aurora, maybe, which is cool. They've got good za, but there's a certain, I play the authenticity factor in there as well too.
Fair enough. Nate, enjoyed the end of this especially. Thanks so much for the time, and we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy the vacation.
Steve, this has been my favorite interview of all time. I greatly appreciate it.